I'm going to introduce everybody and tell you kind of how we're going to do this. We have Debbie, that's Candy, and that's Emma, Sarah, Valerie, and I'm Jacob. And so we went on our trip. We went Thursday to Thursday, and we had 6 complete days where we were serving and doing stuff in Guatemala. So we're going to share those day by day. And so each person's going to share a day and what we did. So we're going to start with Debbie.
Yes, this was another great trip, and a lot happens on a mission trip. And are you setting the timer so I won't talk too long? Okay, good. A lot happens on a mission trip, more than we can fully share with you this morning, obviously. But this was another great experience, and I will say that from my years of going as a participant, I always get more from the trip than I'm able to give. I fully believe that. So I did this time too, and so I think you'll see that come through as everybody shares. So I'm going to share about our first full day there, and that was Friday, July the 5th. And one of my favorite things about this trip is that the mission house it's a great facility that they were able to purchase a few years ago. And my mornings there always start on the balcony. And I don't know if there should be some pictures going, so maybe we'll see some of those pictures. It's a beautiful setting with volcanoes in the distance, and I always start my day there. It's cool there, no humidity. It's really nice, and it's just a time to just be with God in a beautiful setting, and it's a time to share with the other people on the team. And one of our favorite things, I think, was our fellowship on the balconies. And it's just a part of that trip that's so unique and so special. But what we did on that first day, after the fellowship on the balcony morning, is that we met and had a devotion with the Buena Vista Ministerios transition team. And that's a team of young adults and their staff as well. That's a team, the transition team is young adults, mostly college students, I think probably all college students right now. A lot of these young adults have come through this ministry as sponsored children for, the past, maybe up to 13 years. And they are now college students. And that is something that probably would not have happened had they not had the support and the encouragement that the sponsorship program gives. So we were able to meet with them and share a devotion with them. One of our team members shared, and it was it's just a special time of getting to know them, and we met with them multiple mornings. So that was the first thing that we did. Another special thing we did that day was we got to visit the first feeding center that Buena Vista established, and it's on up this huge hill. It's called San Cristobal, and it is a hike, right? It's a mile up a hill. It's a very steep hill. It's not an easy walk, but people live all up and down that hill, and almost to the top there is a building that was built specifically for a feeding center. And they have a sweet lady who cooks there, who's been the cook there the whole entire time, all the years that has been established. And she was even cooking for people before that. And she's still there. We were able to present a little short lesson with them and help with their lunch that day. And I'll just have to put a plug in for the lesson that day. My daughter, Emily, this is college dollars put to work, it's paid out. She did her lessons in Spanish, which I was very surprised and excited that she was able to do that. She studied Spanish in college, and so we were able to present a lesson on the fruit of the Spirit to those children there, and there'll be some pictures of that scrolling through these pictures. So the feeding centers are very important. Some of these kids don't have nutrition without them, and so they get at least one good hot meal a day. Also, there was a really fun activity that happened that day, and that was a huge soccer event. And a lot of our younger people, brave people, played soccer with the kids, and they let the little kids have a time of soccer. They let the middle elementary age and then the teenagers play. And they love soccer, and our folks loved soccer, and hopefully there's some soccer there. They did. Our people did lose very badly whenever they played soccer with the Guatemalans, but that's okay. They were good sports. So that was just a great time of fellowship. It's something those kids absolutely love to do, and to be around our team and just to have that example and that support and that love and that camaraderie in soccer was really, really fun. The last thing that I want to share about the Friday that day was that we were able to do 2 house visits. And house visits are very special times, and both of the visits that we did on Friday were sponsored children that people in our church sponsor. So one of those that we got to visit was, he's sponsored by Doug and Joy Swigert, and that was fun to get to visit with him. And the very special thing that usually happens when we do a house visit is that we get to pray with the family, and a lot of times somebody's able to share the gospel if it's a family who may need that. So that was very special. And then last of all, I just want to say that there it was, back one. I got to be with my sponsored child, and everybody got to be with us there. Yeah, there she is. And we have been with her for 8 years. So she was little, and now she's 16 and in high school. And we just have really developed a relationship with her through the years. And because of the sponsorship program, she is able to get her school supplies every year. There's some help with, there's a birthday gift, a cake, a birthday recognition, and other help that her family might need with food and things through the year. But it's a really special relationship. And honestly, that was one of those times where she and her mom, especially her mom, I think they poured more into us as we poured into them. So try not to cry. But it's a special relationship, and we got to do a lot of those house visits. But that was basically that Friday. It was full and tiring, but wonderful. So I'm going to pass it on to Saturday.
So I'm Candy, and I'm going to tell you about what we did on Saturday. And Debbie kind of mentioned a little bit, but we met, actually in Guatemala, we met up with some members of another team. So it was Emily and Josh, and then 3 others that met with us. So after breakfast that morning on Saturday, we loaded up the truck. We took sheets of tin, 2x4 or maybe 4, I don't know, my construction materials, but post tools and things like that. So we loaded the truck. We went to meet the family that we were building on an addition to their home for, and it was to be used for a kitchen. That family consists of mom and dad, a daughter that's middle school age, and then 4 sons ranging from 7 or 8 years old down to 1. Yeah, I have 2 on here, but it was 1. Then half of the team stayed to do construction, and then we did some home visits. So last year when we went, it was my first time to go. Emma's my daughter. This was her 4th time to go. But last year when we went, we did not have a sponsored child yet. And I was learning about the program. And from the very first day, we went on a home visit to this family. And some of the children were sponsored, but not all of them. And some of the children there had basically been abandoned by their family and were being raised by this other family. It's really a complicated situation, so we met Wilter that day, and he was showing Danny all his schoolwork, and he was so excited. And then Every single day, the rest of that trip, we saw either Wilter or Wilter's family. And that is not common because they don't just hop in the car and drive like they were walking or come into the center to ask to be sponsored. And so it was like, okay, God, I get it. This is my child, And so we began, they applied to be sponsored, and we asked for a child. And so we were matched that exact week last year. So we got to go and visit him, and then Jacob's sponsored child, Jorge, is actually in that same family. And so we were able to visit them. We had taken them some gifts, some clothes. Jacob had brought toothbrushes and toothpaste and books. And so we were able to visit with them. And like Debbie said, home visits are very special, very humbling, and just very heart-moving. So then we went back to the house after lunch. The whole team went to do VBS, and this is a picture of VBS. So I was to do the lesson that day, and they had advertised and sent things home with the kids and let them know that we were having VBS that Saturday. Well, this is rainy season in Guatemala, and it doesn't sprinkle. It's a tropical downpour, monsoon type rain. And so we get everybody there, and we play a little game for VBS to kind of gather them together. And then right after the game, it downpours and also starts to thunder and lightning. And we are gathered under this tiny ledge. That's us playing games that day, so you can see how many kids were there. We gathered under this tiny ledge, and Kim comes, there we go, we're under the ledge. And Kim says, it's time to start the lesson. And I said, really? And she said, yeah, go ahead, it's your turn. And I said, right now? And she said, yes, go. And so I started. As you can see, I need readers. Could not read through them because of the rain. They were gathered trying to make sandwiches in the rain, and this was the kind of rain where you can't keep anything dry. And so we were in the street where we're going to continue, and then one of the workers, I didn't know, but one of the workers from the transition team had gone across the street and said, can we please come in? And so this family graciously opened their doors there were at least 70 of us, that's how many we could count. Moms, kids, us workers. And so we all piled in there, thankful for shelter. And to say that they welcomed us, they did not hesitate. They said, yes, come inside. And their homes are really long and narrow, and so this was us like in the entryway and kind of in their kitchen area. So I regathered myself, and we did the lesson. We talked about the armor of God and all of the pieces and the significance of that. And another God thing in the middle of this, last year we had crafts where we had glue sticks and colors and little pieces of paper. And this year we did not have that. We had, they made swords. They just stuck things on there that were actually stickers. Well, we didn't have glue. We did little soldiers, and they dressed them with all of the pieces of the army. And then we had shields that they decorated with stickers. So it was so cool to me how God was like, I had already worked all this out to where you could still do these activities in these circumstances. So we were able to do all of that. We had moms that stayed. It's amazing to me how these families are so trusting that Kim and Danny have truly, it's a testament to them that the relationship that they've built up over the years that they've been there, that these families just say, yes, here are my kids, pour into them. And the parents also were very engaged in the lesson, and I noticed that the man of the house, every time I made eye contact with him, he was very engaged in the lesson that, I had designed for kids. But Kim told us later that night, another thing we do is in the evenings we all gather together and talk about our day and talk about what was most meaningful or difficult. And so that night Kim shared with us that the man of the house that had opened his doors to us was going through some spiritual struggles and some hard times with his family. And so to me, that was almost another thing where God, made that opportunity where he may not have heard the word of God that day. Had it not rained, he did that day. And so I'm kind of the person where I sometimes need a slap up against the face to get God's message. And this just showed me, like, God is with us in the middle of the storm, literally. He makes a way when there seems to be no way. Like, I was ready to be like, okay, well, I guess we're going to have to call it off and do something else. And Kim was like, no, this is what we do. We're doing it, and we're going to make a way. And God showed me, like, you know, you were ready to give up, and I already had everything worked out. So that was really kind of the thing that stuck with all of us, I think, from that day was, as crazy as it was and as bad as it seemed, God made a way. And Emma's going to share a little bit about how the next day we were able to see how the kids had really learned that day and the lesson stuck with them.
So I am going to talk about Sunday. We woke up and went to church with Danny, I'm not Danny, with Kim and their family. And so we all pitched in this 12-passenger van. There was more than 12 of us, and we went to church together. This is a church that's about 5 or 10 minutes down the road, and it's a mixture of missionary families and just citizens of Guatemala. They mix together in this church. It's bilingual, and so they start in Spanish, and they'll sing in Spanish, and then they'll do some verses in English. And we talked about submitting to authority and submitting to leaders and your community and stuff like that. We, on our way there, we also had a bunch of kids that are in the feeding center, and in the area that we did the VBS, they came to the church. They came to the church service with us and went to their children's church. And so then after that, it was a really great service. After that, we went home and we ate lunch. And then we decided we didn't decide to. Because of the rain, we were building this kitchen. This entire week, we've been building this kitchen. And we needed 10 walls. We needed a retaining wall, but we also needed to build a kitchen, like tall, which, okay, I'm not a building person, so please, I obviously did not do the building, so my terms are not correct. But that's about what the kitchen would look like in their house. And so we were trying to replicate that for this other family. And so we were doing concrete posts in the ground. Well, it rained and monsooned. It was so hard for it to dry. So it took a little bit longer for us to get the kitchen done, to get it set because of the rain. So we eventually had to go back. So this was the third day that we were working on the kitchen. And so a lot of the guys, obviously not me, went to work on the kitchen, and a lot of the other half of us went down back into the street, and we did a second kind of VBS. Almost all of these kids came just from knocking on doors and saying, hey, we're outside, do you want to play soccer? Do you want to play a game? And so we started with soccer, and we started with the, what's that called? The parachute, thank you. And we started with the parachute, and they absolutely loved it. You would have thought I don't know, they just loved it. Like, they were thriving for that. They were thriving for that, that time with somebody, that one-on-one time with people. And so then we decided to do some of the games that we had intended to do on Saturday when it was monsooning. And so we kind of switched. And so these are all the kids that we had just from knocking on doors and standing in the middle of an alleyway between all these houses. We had about 30 to 40 kids. And what's not pictured here also is some parents that were standing out there. We had tons of moms and even a few men in the house, which are normally working every single day of the week. So it was really interesting to see some men come out and participate and want to be involved and cheering their kids on. And so these are kids that I've been coming since 2019, and these are kids that I've even seen just grow up. And now they've got smaller siblings, and they're leading their siblings to play and to communicate with us and learn. And you could tell they really wanted to learn about the Bible and what we had to say. And so we did our same lesson of the swords of the what is it? Armor of God. Thank you. And we did all of the same kind of information that we did the first time, but we did it more in a game version since we couldn't with the rain. And these kids remembered almost every single detail that we had said in the monsoon inside of a building where the rain is beating on the tin. I could barely hear my mom. I don't know how these other kids could hear. And so it was really cool to even see that even through all of the circumstances that were going on Saturday with the rain and having to yell and having to, you know, climb through all these 70 people in a crowded household, they were listening, and they truly understood what we were saying. And so here's some pictures of us just playing games. And then a bunch of the other people were at the house. They ended up coming down. Jacob came down, and the other guys that they had mentioned ended up coming down. And there is just one thing that I want to highlight that's not about my day specifically, but like they have said, we were with a group with 3 people specifically that we had never met before. And it's always a little nerve-wracking when you're with a team and with people that you don't know, because this is a very intimate experience. I mean, you're stuck in a house with these people for a week, and you're up under each other all the time. You don't know how that's going to work. And this group, I've never in my entire life been on a mission trip where the group works so well together without knowing each other, we didn't know anything about these guys. They jumped in. It was 2 teenage boys and one of their dads, and they jumped in, and there was no bickering, no fighting, no nothing. It was all positive experience, and we truly have a friendship now, even with people in the States now that we support and we love and we're praying for, that we wouldn't have known and we wouldn't have met if it wasn't for this trip. So that was Sunday.
Okay, I am Monday. So Monday morning we had morning devotion with the ministry team again. So they work, Monday through Friday. So we only had devotions on those days. So it's really special to just start your day sitting in a circle with the people that you're, working in a team with, and having a devotion for us, for ourselves. Before we go and do the things that God's laid out for us that day. So on Monday, we spent most of the day with the students of the school Brio de Sol. And Brio de Sol is an inclusive school. It's a private school that's funded entirely by donations, but they accept students of all abilities, and they are sort of blended in classes. And they have an elementary school that meets in the morning, and then a middle school that meets in the afternoon. And last year when we went, they were a village over in a building next to a police dog training facility, which was very loud, very smelly, very scary. And when they were in their little playground area, which is where we were teaching and playing with them, you can just hear the dogs constantly, and there's always the fear that they'll get out and stuff like that. Well, their lease ended last year in that building, and Danny and Kim sort of presented to their ministry board. They had purchased some land many years ago that they had intended to build on, but when the mission house became available and they were able to purchase that, they just kind of held on to the land. So they were able to give that land to the school to build on. And so the school has been raising funds to build a school for these students. But in the meantime, they still needed a place to meet. And the ministry had purchased the property next door to them as well, for sort of like future expansion. And so that school was able to meet in the buildings next door to the mission house itself. So it's so cool because the kids could just walk right across the street into the mission house, and we could do VBS with them. So with the younger age group, you can see here, Emily is teaching the fruit of the Spirit with them. I was just blown away by the way that they could connect actual fruit like fresas and banano and piña and naranja and what? Sandia? Watermelon, okay. With the characteristics of the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience. I can say some of those in Spanish. By the end of Emily's lesson, I could. So we were able to do that lesson. And then Christy at our kids' camps this summer at Chula Vista, she had that Fruit of the Spirit Bible verse printed out in Spanish, and the kids got to decorate those. Raise your hand if you helped decorate some of those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. So we got to pass those out to all the students that did the Fruit of the Spirit lessons, and they got to read as Emily read that Bible verse, and then they got to keep that card that our students in Alabama had decorated. And then we split up the group, and half the group got to play games that reinforced those lessons. They were games based on the Fruit of the Spirit lesson, and then the other half got to do a craft. And there's something really special about having a tangible thing to take home with you to remind you of what you've learned. And then they flip-flopped, and the other, they switched games and crafts. And then what was really cool was they had one student sort of stand up at the end and address us, our team, as a thank you. And he sort of represented the school for us, and just a beautiful thank you and encouragement to us. So then that group went back across the street, and then the upper elementary group came across, and we repeated the whole thing over again. So it was probably about maybe 100 students total that morning, split between the two classes. And then after lunch, we were presented with a really special opportunity, because it was the first time that the Ministerius Buena Vista, the ministry, was working with a new school. And this school was one village over. And some of the students that they have been in the sponsor program go to this school. But this is a middle school, public middle school. And they allowed us to come and gave us about an hour and a half, 2-hour time slot with the entire school. And Kim was like, I want it to be youth group. And I was like, okay, we're going to do youth group. And we don't know, what sort of facilities we're going to have. We've never been there before. That kind of, Kim didn't know what to tell us either. So we kind of went in a little blind. We did know that we would have about 120 students, which is a lot. And so we planned a couple games, and the room that we were in would probably comfortably seat about 80, and we had 120. So it was very tight. It was long and skinny, so the people in the back, had a hard time hearing maybe. But the Sellers Williams Growth Group had raised money and purchased Spanish Bibles, and they sent 40 Spanish Bibles with us. And so I got to pass these Bibles out and get these kids in groups of 3, because 120 divided by 40 is 3. And they were, you could see in the pictures, they're huddled up over the Bibles reading God's Word together, or reading God's Word out loud to their friends. And that is probably the most beautiful sound I've ever heard. 40 teenagers reading God's Word at the same time. And they're reading from Psalm 139, which is, He knows me. He sees me when I wake up in the morning. He sees me when I go to bed. He knows the thoughts before I think them. He knows the words before I say them. He goes before me. He's behind me. If I go up to heaven, He's there. If I go down to the depths, He's there. I can't go anywhere away from Him. So to hear them saying those things, even in a different language, and answering the questions and things like that, top experience for me. And to be entrusted with the first visit at that school was really special too. Then we came back to the mission house, and we did the afternoon middle school with Bria de Sol. And we had Candy led the Armor of God with the older group. It was the same sort of process. She taught the lesson kind of in the way that was planned, not the monsoon derailment, but the planned way. And then, split the group, and half did games, half did crafts, and then flip-flopped. And again, this is the student who was sharing his sort of thank you and encouragement to us, which was really special. And then later that night, the staff, the ministry team, surprised us by staying for dinner and having a special dinner for us. It was Josh Dieter's birthday and Candy's birthday. So they had a special dinner for us. They had birthday cake, and we were all crammed in. I wish I would have put a picture of that. We were all crammed in, and it's just so special and so fun and hilarious. And it's always a reminder to me that, we talk about the church as a family, and it really, really is, and this is such an important family to me. But I remember the first time I went to Guatemala, it was like this light bulb went off that I had family in a different part of the world that I had never met before. And so that night was a real expression of that. And then they also stayed for our evening share time, which was really special. And one of the workers, so there's a worker who's been there as long as the ministry has, Irene, in different roles, and she cooks in the feeding center now. And her two oldest sons grew up in the sponsorship program and are now in the transition team, like Debbie mentioned. One of them cooks for us when we're there, and when we're not, he's a maintenance guy, and the other one sort of works more with the kids, Brian and Alejandro. And their middle brother, or their younger brother, was at the middle school that we had gone to. And Brian shared in our debrief time that when he was in middle school, a team came and shared with them, and he wondered, while they were sharing, I wonder if this is the ministry that my mom works with. And it wasn't, but he thought it was cool. And so he always dreamed that Danny and Kim's ministry would get to go to his school and share. And so when Kim was putting together our week, she asked the staff for some ideas, and that was his idea for us to go and share and for his brother to be part of that. And so that was, I think, even more special that he wanted that. So that was Monday.
Tuesday, this was my first trip to Guatemala. It was the best experience I've ever had. Tuesday, we split into, I didn't even touch it. You touched it. You want me to start from the beginning? Tuesday, we split into multiple groups. Some of us went and finished construction. Others went and did home visits or stayed at the ministry and helped with the feeding center. And then Michelle Murray from River Chase was in our group. She went to Brio del Sol. So the ones who went and did home visits, they went to see Monica, one of the kids that's sponsored by Doug and Joy. And then they also went to see Miguel, who were sponsored by David and Katsy. Each of them, they either took something to them. One was a customized Bible, and then another one, they took a food basket for the family. And so I was in construction, so everyone who did that was ministering to them and sharing good things with them. Michelle was at the special needs school, teaching the gatios, the kitten class, their colors in English. And she loved that because she works in special needs here in the States. And so that was just a big blessing for her. And then in construction, we put up the walls in the kitchen and the roof. And then we also framed out a door. That way that kitchen could be closed off, could have its own separate room. And then when the family gets time, they can move their stove or their oven into the new kitchen. Right as we were completing it, Kim called everybody wherever they were at and brought them into this house with this family. And the family was prayed over. They were gifted some Bibles, a water filtration system, because water there is not very good. And then it was a really cool experience. And then it was cool to see that there was a spot for everybody. If you were good with kids, there were plenty of kids everywhere. If you were good at construction, there was constructions to do. And just the community that was felt there, it was amazing.
So I'm going to share about Wednesday. And first, I got to say, this is such an amazing experience. And so if you're interested, come speak to one of us. Come speak to me and Valerie or Debbie or anybody, and we can get you set up to go with us next time. Because one of my favorite things about the trip is just the community. There is a language barrier, but you don't feel that just because, like Valerie said, you feel like just one big family. And yeah, you don't know their language, but you feel communication. One of our ways of communicating was laughter. I mean, we would laugh at everything, and it was just so good to spend time with those people. On Wednesday, we woke up and we did our last devotion with the transition team, and Josh Dieter led that. And then we headed out on our adventure it was our tourist day, and we actually went ATV riding, and each of us got our own ATVs, and we officially are Guatemalan citizens because we actually drove in the streets. Not really, but it was such a cool experience. We got to go up and look over the city of Antigua, and then we drove our ATVs to a coffee farm and did that experience. And then after that, we did a little bit of the tourist shopping and came back, and what was really special is we had our weekly debrief at the end of the day about we had our debrief at the end of the day about our whole week and what our takeaways were, and it was just so special. It's such a special time to a fellowship with these people, and and so also to close us out. We want to thank you, church, for helping us go. And I want to remind that we have an account set up. It's called Faith Promise. And when you give to this account, or you give to Faith Promise, you allow trips like this to happen. You allow experiences like this to happen. And it's so important. And just a reminder what Faith Promise is, it's offering for money that is unexpected. And so, again, we appreciate it so much. Danny and Kim's ministry is a ministry that we give to yearly, and it's just such a special place. It's God has blessed them, and it's just overflowing with blessings. And so that's all. And again, thank y'all.